Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are 12 items on our agenda this evening, and I will now ask the city clerk to start with agenda item number 1.
Minutes of the City Council meeting, January 13th, 2020.
Anyone? Councilor Roby.
Thank you. Move to accept and place on file.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept and place on file the minutes from our last meeting. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is passed unanimous. Item 2.
Now is the time for the public hearing on the application for special permit from attorney Brian Falk on behalf of VD Naturals LLC to operate an adult-use marijuana retail establishment at 505 Boston Post Road West, order number 19-100-7881.
Just remind everyone, this public hearing will be taken in 4 stages. Public speaking in favor, questions from the public, public speaking in opposition, and questions from the city councilors. So the first up, the proponent speaking in favor. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you, President Ossing, councilors. Brian Falk from Myrick O'Connell, 100 Front Street in Worcester, here on behalf of the applicant VD Naturals LLC. Here with me tonight, I'm properly mic'd now. Here with me tonight is Jigar Patel, our principal and founder, in-house counsel Ian Hedges, Jameen Patel, our business development consultant, engineer Eric Diaz from Strong Point Engineering Solutions, and our security advisor, Andy Wilder. This is an application for special permit for an adult-use marijuana retail establishment. We're located in 2,400 square feet of existing retail space in the Twin Borough Crossing, 505 Boston Post Road West, Route 20. As I mentioned, it's an existing retail space, 2,400 square feet. This plaza has 78 parking spaces in total, although only 65 are required by zoning. You should all have copies of the business plan we submitted. Between impact fees and local retail sales taxes, which are 3% each, we estimate that this location will bring approximately $300,000 in revenue each year to the city of Marlborough. In addition, we'll have between 6 and 25 employees, depending upon growth, with a local hiring preference. And just to get your bearings, again, this is Boston Post Road, Route 20 West, right along the Northborough line, and our proposed facility would be right towards the middle of the existing building. This is our draft floor plan. Again, this would be the sidewalk and the parking area. People would come in through an entry vestibule, secured entry vestibule where their IDs would be checked. There'd be a second secured area waiting room before people would enter the dispensary area where they would browse and purchase products. So just a little bit of background. Some of you may not recall the permitting and licensing procedures for one of these facilities. First and foremost, you need a host community agreement, which we entered with the city in October of last year. Next, you have to hold a community outreach meeting, which we did in November of 2019. Abutters that are on this notice list also got notice of that community outreach meeting. Next, we submitted our license application to the Cannabis Control Commission earlier this month. That's where we're at so far. Next steps, this special permit from the City Council. Site plan review, although we're not proposing changes to the plaza, the zoning ordinance does require that we go through site plan review with the site plan committee. We need a local permit from the Board of Health. That's the city's new Board of Health regulations on this point introduced a local permitting option, annual renewal. And then finally, our state license from the Cannabis Control Commission, which we hope to obtain as soon as possible. With that, I want to turn things over to Jigar Patel, our president and founder, so he can tell you a little bit about himself and his vision for the company.
Good evening, everyone. Council members, thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Jigar Patel. I'm the founder of Vedi Naturals. The company's mission is to encourage a balanced, well-rounded cannabis experience. The vision is to promote a balanced lifestyle through diet, herbal consumption, and breathing exercises. My collegiate background is in marketing and entrepreneurship from the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. I've contributed to startups in the small business retail space within fashion, technology, and premium consumable products. I've also been involved in the Massachusetts Medical Cannabis Program as an agent and caregiver, and that experience has motivated me to pursue my entrepreneurial journey in the recreational industry in the Commonwealth and with the city of Marlborough. I'd just like to thank you all for having us here tonight, and I'd like to pass it to Eric Diaz, my civil engineer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions. In a case like this, really not a ton for me to talk about as far as site design is concerned. It is just a tenant fit out in an existing multi-tenant retail facility. The building totals approximately 14,000 square feet, give or take. We're not proposing any changes to the site at this time. As Attorney Falk discussed, we are required under the bylaw to have 65 stalls. We exceed that. It's 78. And those stalls are exclusive to the property shown. There is no overlap accounted for here at the West Ender Restaurant, so those would remain completely independent. We have two-way egress on both Boundary and Boston Post Road, and as you know, there is a signalized intersection right here where those two meet, which will help traffic flow, so we don't anticipate any traffic hiccups as a result of this project. We should note that we are more than 500 feet from the nearest neighboring daycare center. That daycare center is located at 497 Northborough Road West, and we did locate that with an on-the-ground survey, building corner to building corner, to confirm that we do meet that requirement. So really, those are the final points of it. It's an existing site. It does conform to existing zoning. There are no known issues with the facility currently being overwhelmed, and we don't anticipate that there will be any. Thank you.
I next wanted to call up our security consultant, Andy Wilder, to discuss some of the security provisions that we have designed to comply with the CCC requirements.
My name's Andrew Wilder. I'm with Citronic Security. I've been in the security industry for 31 years. My company is out of Billerica, Massachusetts. We've been in the cannabis industry for 3.5 years. I've been designing multiple cannabis recreational facilities and gross facilities. This happens to be a recreational facility. And under the Cannabis Commission rule regulations, it's a CMR 935, and its paragraph actually 105 states that must have a security system with cameras, access control, intrusion system, and intercoms. And that's for protecting the establishment, for cameras, for video, so the commission can view it, and of course they can keep track of the people, the employees, deliveries, and of course people who are buying cannabis. Also, there's access control. It controls the access to the facility for employees, the people buying the cannabis, and also deliveries, and keeping people out. So this is designed by myself through the regulations that the cannabis facility is like 98% covered by cameras. The only thing not covered is restrooms, and in this case it could be, which I don't believe it is from my design, a luncheon area for the employees. So all this area is covered by cameras. It is blacked out, which I have a full set of plans for the council to review, but for the public, because of sensitive issues, vaults, POSs, then that's why it is whited out. But I do have a full set of plans that you can review. And so there's cameras in that white area where the vault is, and there are areas of movement for the employees. But it is covered. The regulations state the exterior doors will be covered inside and out, but the exterior is covered from the deliveries and people coming into the establishment. And inside, when they get in, it's also covered by cameras. So that's what the design is here. There is also an access control component where there's people, they cannot get in without being going through a security measures of cards, and there's readers, electronics, and then there's an intercom system at the entranceway. So the storage vault is secured within this premises, and it has access control, and it also has cameras on those areas. POS, it has a camera on each POS station, so it records the transactions. It is under the 90 days. By requirement, you have to have 90 days of video storage. We have gone through the process, which we met with the chief of police on Monday. So he has reviewed these plans, and I think he's going to write a report from verbal commitment from the chief of police. He's accepted these security plans. So we have done everything that is required by the Cannabis Commission, and I think it would be accepted by the council and the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. We understand that marijuana establishments are still very new to Massachusetts and new to Marlboro. Garden Remedies, your first marijuana retailer, only opened last spring, but I believe Garden Remedies has proven that this can be a good use in the city with minimal impacts and significant municipal revenue. We're mindful that your decision here will be guided by the Garden Remedies special permit conditions, and I've reviewed those with my client. We know that that's our baseline. We're committed to working closely with the police department on both traffic and security. As Andy mentioned, we met with the chief last week to begin a cooperative partnership with him. With that, we're happy to take your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Falk. At this point, again, looking for the public portion for people speaking in favor of the project. Is there anyone speaking in favor of the project? Please come up, state your name and address.
Keith St. John, 148 Stearns Road. As we know from the most recent election cycle, the West Side Emergency Station is a very large project that's weighing on the minds of many in the city of Marlboro. Many in this chamber have said we need additional tax revenue before we can tackle that sort of project. This project, the marijuana dispensary we know works in Marlboro. I think this location is probably better than the current Garden Remedies location. Just with the new construction on Route 20 today, the traffic backed up past down to the Town Fair Tires. We were just in that shopping plaza this evening myself. So I think the additional tax revenue generated by this project is good and will help us get to that West End emergency station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. Any other members of the public speaking in favor? Please come on. No, I just have a question. Hang on. No, this is public speaking in favor. Questions is coming. So please be patient. So any other members of the public speaking in favor? Any other members of the public speaking in favor? Any other members of the public speaking in favor? Seeing none, close that part of the public hearing. Questions from the public? Questions from the public?
We already
Name and
have,
address for the record,
okay,
please.
sorry, Lorna Doan. I live on Burns Road in Marlboro. I'm just wondering, you already have one. This will be the second dispensary. Are you going to limit, or is this going to be, are we going to have a limit on the number of dispensaries in the town?
That is an excellent question. So by our regulations or the ordinances that we put in place, specifically, if you want to get boring, section 650-32-H, we're allowed to have 20% of the amount of package stores that we have in the city. So right now we have 15 package stores, so 20% of that is 3.2, so we're allowed to have 4 because the Cannabis Control Commission says round up. So we're allowed to have 4 by right in the city of Marlborough, assuming they pass the special permit conditions as well as the Cannabis Control Commission has to approve them as well.
Okay. I just don't want the city getting run over like we used to be run over with barrooms. I mean, just a personal,
It's a valid comment.
all right. We want a classy city. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else having questions? Any other questions from the public? Please come on up, state your name and address.
David Fisher, 246
Oh, hey,
Boundary Street.
hang on, Mr. Fisher. Get to the microphone so the public can hear you.
David Fisher, 246 Boundary Street.
Go ahead.
My question is, how far is the plaza from the current daycare center?
So it is slightly more than 500 feet building to building, which is what's required by the zoning ordinance.
I understand.
Hey. Continue, Mr. Falk.
That's it. It's more than 500 feet from the daycare center, which is what's required by the zoning ordinance.
I understand that it's more than 500 feet. Is it 501 feet? I'm asking what the distance is between.
Thank you, engineer. 520 feet.
Okay, and do you know how far it is from the Algonquin Regional High School?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know where the Algonquin Regional High School is located in relation to this facility?
I am aware.
And what would the hours of operation be of this facility?
The city council will likely set those hours of operation as they did for Garden Remedies. Garden Remedies is 10 to 8, Monday through Saturday, and 10 to 5 on Sundays.
And has a traffic control study been done on Boundary Street as a result of the traffic that currently backs up there and the impact this facility would have on it?
We have not done a traffic study, no.
No more questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the public? Questions from the public? Please state your name and address for the...
Raymond Lombardi, 877 Elm Street.
Continue.
Further to the previous question about traffic study, backups on Boundary Street, you talked before about 78 parking spaces in the plaza requiring 65. Does that leave sufficient parking for the other retailers in that plaza? It sounds like it's not very much left for them.
We believe it does. It's a shared parking lot, as it has been for a variety of retail uses for several decades. Once up and running, we don't believe that we're going to have a negative impact on parking spaces for the other tenants in the facility.
Have you done any estimates on how many vehicles, parking spaces will be used?
It will vary based on the day of the week, but by and large, between 5 and 10 at any given time.
I see, okay. May I ask another question?
Absolutely. You have the
Okay,
floor.
I drove through the plaza this morning. I did not notice any vacant spaces there. Is there an existing establishment there that you're going to take over?
We have an agreement to lease 2 of the units in the plaza.
And they're currently occupied or they're vacant?
They are currently occupied.
Okay. Last question, are you anticipating additional police presence for security and traffic control? And if so, how will that be paid for?
We will have our own security personnel at the facility at all times during operating hours. Again, the city council will likely I would assume impose the same condition upon us as he did for Garden Remedies in terms of a police detail during the first 2 months of operation based on the police chief's judgment as to whether one is warranted. That's what the council did for Garden Remedies, and we're anticipating as much for our use.
If I may, Mr. Lombardi,
sure.
the last permit that we provided, we did have a 60-day requirement for police detail that was paid for by the applicant until the police chief wrote the letter that said, you know, things are quiet, there's no issues, so I can only anticipate the Urban Affairs Committee will put some similar type condition into the special permit should it go beyond that.
Okay, thank you for answering the questions.
Any other members of the public with questions?
Thank you. I'm Dominic Valeriotti, representing my dad, Joseph Valeriotti, at 25 Boundary Street. There's an exit and an entrance, I believe, on Boundary Street, directly across the street from 25 Boundary Street. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any limits on that entrance and exit. And if there's going to be, there is a problem getting in and out of that area because the traffic on Boundary Street comes up over the hill. And I'm wondering if you've worked out anything. Do you understand the exit that I'm talking about?
I do. You know, first, we're going to be tenants in this plaza, so what changes we can make to the overall site is limited by what our landlord will work with us on. We're not proposing any changes to the site as it's currently situated.
Okay, so people will be entering and exiting off of Boundary Street.
The existing curb cuts and traffic flow would stay the same the way we are currently proposing.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? Are there any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public?
No, I just wondering, was the report done from the public hearing?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is very, very interesting. Thank you. Ted Nanskowiak, 477 Northborough West Street. Just wondering, a month ago or two, we had a public hearing on this specific issue, and there was probably as many residents and business people at that meeting, and that meeting didn't go well. There was no single point of support for this project. Was there any report filed from that meeting? Is there anything on file that you can refer to?
I will ask the applicant.
I think you're referring to the community outreach meeting that was held in November.
Yes, November,
Which
right.
is a meeting that the Cannabis Control Commission requires that all applicants put on. It's not a city meeting. It's not held at
That's
City
not
Hall.
the question. Is
Right.
there a report from that meeting?
We have our own notes from the meeting, and we took the comments into account. We don't have a report.
Can I suggest that a report be generated and submitted with the application? There were people from the council on that meeting, and they were clearly seeing what people had to say. And what was the reaction of the residents that are being forced to accept another establishment of this kind?
We can ask the applicant if they, unless the councils or attendants took their own notes, we can ask the applicant if they want to provide their summary.
But I will imagine that when the state constitutes that there's a requirement for public hearing, there's also a requirement to submit a report from that hearing and share with the council here so you have some reference point.
Yeah, I'm not that versed in that portion of the law, sir, to know if they require a written, the law says you have to have the meeting. I'm not sure if it says
But I mean,
how it has
just
to
to
be
have a
documented.
meeting without any, meeting minutes and a report will be meaningless. I mean, that's not what we are about, right?
I'm not going to argue with you there.
So is there any way we can obtain that report and attach that to the application?
I can ask the applicant if they have, well, I'll let Attorney Falk answer that
We
question.
can prepare a summary of the
Also,
outreach
would it be
meeting.
helpful if we collect input from residents in this area with their comments in writing and submit in terms of what the overall opinion and understanding and willingness to accept this establishment is? Because I would imagine that this is our city as much a neighborhood as it is, the people that want to force something that we don't want on us, yeah?
No, the residents are always encouraged, if you submit comments, they will be forwarded to the Urban Affairs Committee to take under consideration.
And what
during
is the
review.
effect of this? How are you going to take under consideration? Do we have any say, any way in that? Or?
This is your say right now, sir, to
So
say.
that kind of a petition would not help in any way anymore?
Well, it's hard to predict. You have to predict what the vote of the council is going to be. It's got to get a favorable recommendation through Urban Affairs and then a favorable vote through the
And
council.
I have a couple of questions, thank you. Does the council realize what is the medical establishment opinion about marijuana in the state, in the city? Not the city.
I'm going to help you there for 1 minute. So remember, the citizens of Marlborough in 2016 voted to accept adult use marijuana in our city. They could not, they didn't have to. Other cities and communities around us voted no, but the city, so the democratic process, the majority said they would like to have it in the city of Marlborough. So that was passed in 2016. The council then took on the undertaking of developing an ordinance to say, well, where would we put one of these facilities, and what do we want the requirements to be, in the review requirements, which are all outlined in that ordinance, 65032, that says, what do we need to take under consideration should a facility come before us? The folks at Garden Remedies went through that process, and the folks at VD Naturals are now trying right now. Will they make it? I don't know. It's 11 members of the council
Right.
have to vote on that, sir.
Of course, I understand. And 20 feet makes a difference, right? Whether kindergarten and teachers and parents and people who live there are exposed to activities that nobody desires. 20 feet is going to make a difference between what the law allows and what people push on us.
Currently, the way the ordinance is written, that is correct, sir.
Okay. Is there any recourse, legal recourse for the residents to take?
I mean, they can contact their city councilors and express their opinions to them as to how they feel on the particular issue.
I just have one more question and I'm done. Is the city council aware how many people a day stays at the ICU department at the hospital, Marlborough Hospital, because of overdose, because of, useless loss of lives is happening every day because of what we are witnessing here today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public? Seeing none, close that portion of the public hearing. Public speaking in opposition. Any public speaking in opposition? Any public speaking in opposition? Yes, sir. Please come on up, state your name and address for the record. Good, Mr. Fisher.
My name is David Fisher, 246 Boundary Street. I've lived there for approximately 21 years. I am a retired captain of the Massachusetts State Police. I am also an attorney. I can tell you from personal experience that these things never go well. These facilities don't go well. These facilities don't go well in the neighborhood. They don't fit in this particular neighborhood. You're right. The city of Marlborough did vote to allow marijuana use, but it is a gateway drug. Whether you want to believe that or not, it's true, based on my 28 years of experience as a state trooper. More importantly, though, this particular location is not suitable for this type of establishment. Boundary Street already backs up a considerable amount just based on regular traffic as a result of the signal control which exists between Boundary Street and Southwest Cutoff, or Route 20, as we're aware of. I also agree with the gentleman that spoke. Is 20, 30, 40 feet from a daycare center really an appropriate location to place one of these facilities? Is a half a mile down the road to a high school where you know these young kids are going to be trying to get their hands on these things, just like as we were young children, we tried to get our hands on alcohol, all right? They're going to be doing the same exact thing. The location is just not appropriate for this type of facility. I believe the attorney spoke that the facility could handle, I'm sorry, there was a large number of people that the facility could handle. Well, is there parking available? These people aren't going to be all coming in one car. They're all going to be coming in separate vehicles. And also, I noticed there was no public consumption, but they're going to be sitting in their vehicles using the product. They're going to be driving out onto our roads as a result of using the product. They're going to be contributing, as the other gentleman said, when you turn left onto, if you try to turn onto Boundary Street, it's a very difficult corner, whether you're turning left or right. So for several reasons, I think it's an inappropriate location. I think the traffic considerations are inappropriate. I think having a daycare center on one side and a high school on the other side is inappropriate. And I think, those would be my two major concerns about having it there. In addition, do you really need another facility like this in the city? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Anyone else speaking in opposition? Any other members of the public speaking in opposition? Any other members of the public speaking in opposition? Seeing none, close that part of the public hearing. Questions from the city councilors. Councilor Oram.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple questions. I heard you say Garden Remedies was the more or less the first one we had with the rollout is what I wanted to say. I'd be curious to see what the chief will respond on police detail and how that will affect the opening if we get to that point. Another question that wasn't asked or presentation is delivery, time of delivery, location of delivery. I don't know if you have those answers now or...
The location of the delivery is planned for the rear of the property. As you can see, this paved driveway behind the property. That's the plan right now. Deliveries to the rear. Delivery times are randomized.
And that's fine. I understand the security. I'm just curious if there'll be a ban on any after-hour delivery. I guess that's the question.
I don't know.
I would ask that there would be, so residents aren't woken up by a truck coming in at night, to consider that. A couple of the questions were already asked by the general public. I was curious, too, how far the daycare with the lights, I look at it that way, it has those colorful lights, was. I got the answer of the 520. I would suggest you show that on a plan, too, just so we have it. If it's not there, I can't tell if
It's hard to tell. This is a small copy. The copy you have of your special permit application, that top right corner shows the measurement.
You have the distance shown?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I couldn't read it myself, but
Okay,
yes.
well, it's not me then. I really, truly understand the exit-entry issue. It is on weekends especially, the West Ender, they do have a lot of traffic. I never realized it, but I parked in the parking lot for the strip mall, not knowing it wasn't part of the West Ender. You almost can't tell. So again, I'd like to see some information on traffic, I guess parking study, I guess, especially on weekends, and how many spaces truly are available. So maybe something on that, as well as if you don't have a traffic flow or pattern, be nice to learn more about that as well. Especially, I agree with the person that was speaking about that exit entry. It's how can we make it better? I have a feeling this will be a successful business. How can we make it better so that the traffic flow works for everybody, the residents as well as the business? Outside of that, I have only one other question, and that was related to the slide presentation with Mr. Patel indicating that he is going to be considering community outreach as well as volunteering at the very bottom. I was just curious what the plans were for that, or if that was just put in there for the time being. Sure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor, for asking that. As of right now, we haven't found the proper, nonprofit organization or drug education facility to work with to educate the community further and fulfill that community outreach component as required by the CCC as well. For getting further into this process and coming out of it successfully, we would be working directly with the Marlborough Chamber of Commerce, the mayor's office, to make sure that they approve with, the proposed business or, education facility that we would propose to work with to fulfill those requirements. Thank you.
Any other comment? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, President Ossing. I do have a couple of questions. A lot of them have already been answered, and I appreciate it from prior conversation. I do want to thank Mr. Fisher and Mr. St. John for actually speaking their opinion. It's an important part of the democratic process, and I think it's important that people do have a chance to actually come out and speak to the council directly and listen to their opinions. As far as just general questions, the restrooms that you're going to have in the facility, they're not going to be available to the public, or?
They're not to be available.
Not to be available to the public, okay. The video storage, is it going to be on site or in the cloud?
Both.
Okay, that's fine. Also, can you pull up the diagram for a minute? Okay, oop, the other one, the one on the inside, because you have a, yep. Okay, so the waiting room is interesting as far as having seats there and then actually going inside. It's different than most of the other dispensaries I've seen, where you basically have, you know, a snake line to go to the people at the stations. How many people do you expect to have in the waiting room versus how many people do you expect to have inside? Any idea why?
We haven't nailed that down entirely. The idea is having, you know, a 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 employee customer ratio.
Okay.
The waiting room, and we've got 9 seats there now. We could have more or less depending. And you're right to point out, this is a little different than the Garden Remedy setup, where the waiting room and the entry vestibule are essentially one and the same. This is, you know, an additional layer of security. You have to show your ID to get in the outside door. Then you're in the entry vestibule with a security officer showing your ID again, and then you're admitted to the waiting room. And then when there's room in the dispensary floor, you'd be admitted to the dispensary floor.
Okay, because, I mean, the queue shows it can be pretty immense as far as the number of people. And having comments about parking, you know, that has a direct impact on the number of cars out in the parking lot. So, you know, at some point, I do think that there could be a concern of parking as far as not providing adequate parking for the other people, you know, the other businesses sharing that area. And if we can, if there could be a possibility basically of a, you know, sounds like the weekends are going to be tough for you and for the restaurant as far as parking goes. Need to, you know, you guys might need to have something off-site and come in and figure out how that gets escalated to that point where it's like, hey, okay, parking's empty, park over here, and we'll shuttle you in. But, you know, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So I think that's going to have to be addressed that way, which is different than Garden Remedies. So,
if I may, just while we're on that, I realize I misspoke when I was presenting earlier. We estimate 10 to 20 vehicles on site during business hours. I think I said 5 to 10, but our impact report was 10 to 20.
Okay, because you got 9 there in the waiting room plus whoever's going to be inside. But yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other counselors? Any other counselors? Counselor Landers, I got to start on this side.
You get used to turning this way. I knew a guy that didn't do that too often. Thank you, Mr. President. I think the capacity has been somewhat of the number of people in there. I think it has satisfied my concern at first, you know, with the 9 seats, and I guess there would be 2 people in the line at each, I call them cashiers, but they're really salespeople. So you're probably talking around 20 people could be inside the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, which isn't bad. What I really don't want is to see, you know, that line snaking, you know, down by the pet store or something. That's what I really don't want. So I think that'll work out, Mr. President, during urban, and I happen to be on the urban committee. The other thing, I heard rumors that all tenants got an eviction notice. Now, it's a possibility that you may be evicted a couple to make room for this place. But is that true that all the rest of the tenants did get a notice of eviction?
I don't know. I don't represent the landlord, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would concern me a little bit because, you know, some of those businesses have been there for a while. So maybe that's something I could also bring up at urban and see.
I can speak to that.
Hang on.
No, you can't ask me. You can ask the president. He's my boss. Okay. Are you satisfied with that?
It's your question. I want to make sure you're satisfied.
Okay, Mr. President, thank you very much.
Any other councilors wishing to ask questions? Council Wagner.
I'd love to hear more. You mentioned it rather quickly. I think this is a really important resource, particularly for people in our community that deal with issues of chronic pain, that are looking for alternatives other than like benzodiazepines and opioids, and there's a lot of really excellent research on this. So you mentioned it rather quickly that I found was different from Garden Remedies, that there'd be more of a holistic approach in really working with a person, but that would also mean longer appointments, so longer turnover and people coming in and out of the store. Is there a, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, and would there be appointments scheduled maybe in non-peak hours to deal with that? And I also just want to say, I'm really impressed with the security and have personally checked out Garden Remedies, which is on my side of town. And certainly when it comes to security is far different from every liquor store and business that sells liquor in this community where people can go in with their kids. So I really appreciate the effort that you put into the security.
Yeah, thank you for asking, Councilwoman Wagner. To touch on that a little bit more, so the idea behind Vedi is to, offer a little more holistic wellness, like a total body, knowledgeable experience, right? So we're trying to educate consumers on not just, this particular thing is going to penetrate or work towards one specific intended effect, but rather educating consumers so they can be mindful of the rest of their body, through diet of what they eat, and breathing practices and just how they consume cannabis and what types of cannabis they consume. So in order to reach that stage, we would basically need to bring on a qualified person like a holistic wellness coach or an herbalist with cannabis experience. So that is the goal for the establishment, is to have somebody like that on premises. And if that goal isn't able to be fulfilled, we'll basically try to do that as best as we can through educational material until the right person is found for that type of position. And to answer your question about the waiting lines and the hold up based on that type of appointment, you bring up a good point to basically schedule those types of things on, after peak hours. I was just, talking to my consultant earlier about if we did have, that type of experience happening in the store, that, we would, have to figure that out. We would have to figure that out, and, it's not everybody is actually, interested in that type of experience either. So it's something that we would like to offer for sure, just because we think it's a suitable way to go about it, and to really educate the consumer. So, thank you.
Council Dumas.
Hello, thank you. I just wanted to follow up with that. This is for adult use recreational and not medical, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great that you want to go the holistic approach, but my question is, then why wouldn't you go for the medical side of the component? Because you are here strictly for recreational, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we are applying for only the recreational license at this point. There's, I believe there's much stricter approaches to the medical component, having a CMO on board and other fulfillments that we would need. I believe that, a lot of medical patients are seeking recreational items as well, just for variety and to see what else is available in the market. So my approach to offer this recreational product with some other educational components through a holistic approach is just my way I'm approaching it as a business.
I get that.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a question regarding the parking usage currently in the property. Do we have an estimate of, during, let's say, peak hours of this facility, how many parking spaces are used currently without the marijuana facility?
I don't have that number for you, but another councilor raised that. It's a very good point. That's something that we're going to look into and bring to urban affairs.
Okay, and then my other question regarding the actual facility overall. I know we talked about how many customers might be in the waiting room, as well as the main part of the facility. Is there an estimated amount of time that a person would be in the facility that would help us understand the flow of parking?
Do you have an idea, Jugar?
So to go through a transaction, thank you for asking a question. It would be an estimated around 15 minutes is like a peak time for somebody to really go through the security standpoint, wait in line, find their product. A lot of times there's rapid pickup where it can be the order can be put on the side with an associated name, and then that's cross-examined with an ID. To make sure that the customer standing in front of the POS is actually getting the product that they intended to buy upon reserving it. So things like that can speed up the process a little bit, but we're anticipating just around like 15, maybe 20 minutes really for the person who really wants to clarify specifics if there's any discrepancy between what we've advertised online as far as cannabinoid content or what's offered, if it's if something is a little different online than what it is in store. So just in case they need to clarify that, they're obviously more than willing to take the extra time that they need to. But typically it's a quicker transaction. Anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes is ample enough for most consumers.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is regarding the hiring. On your slides, you said there'd be a local preference for people living in Marlborough, and I wonder if you could speak to that as well.
Yes. So yeah, thank you for asking. Basically, just around, the first year's goal is around 20% of local hiring, from Marlborough and the neighboring towns. We do have some diversity requirements to fulfill as well. So that can basically reach out to women, veterans, and the LGBTQ population. Upon even some disabled folks. So we're going to be pretty open to those people as well. Just because we're that's how we are. We're open to it, and we also have other requirements that we've dedicated to fulfilling. And overall, it'll grow for Marlborough. Like maybe it'll go to 40 or 60 in the subsequent years, as stated in my business plan. But we'll start with a lower goal just to see the turnout and see how many folks in Marlborough are actually interested.
And on that same line, can you speak to whether there's a lot of training that's involved, or like what kind of, barriers to entry there would be for local residents to be employed at this facility?
Right, exactly. So, excuse me, cannabis experience isn't necessarily required right away. We will be providing training. I said that I was a previous agent at a facility, and the general manager who hired me has also agreed to come train my staff. And if not him, then we'll be finding the proper managers to actually train the staff on cannabinoids and what we're selling and how to just go about the experience and process. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other councilors? Any other councilors? Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is currently in Urban Affairs, where I will be setting up a committee meeting to take this up as my first challenge as the new Urban Affairs chairman. First thing I want to do is add an additional letter that we received from Tom Dennehy, who is an owner of a business at the plaza, with conditional support for the facility. Second thing I want to mention before I forget is a business called the Addiction Referral Center, which is located on Main Street, mostly for Mr. Patel as someone to reach out to work with a nonprofit that he's looking for. They might be happy to receive some money. The third thing is I will read, with your indulgence, Mr. President, from the City Code 65032. The special permit granting authority, which in the city is the council, shall grant the special permit only upon its written determination that any adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the city or the neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of the site. And they shall use a not limited to list social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading, and I would ask that we have a traffic study if possible, for urban affairs. Additionally, adequacy of the utilities and public services, the neighborhood character and social structures, the impact on the environment, the potential fiscal impact, and the hours of operation. So those are some of the things that the members of the City Council hopefully will be thinking about as this is before us when they then make their decision on how they're voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. Are there any other questions from the councilors? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I missed this one on the first round. Where's your grow facility? Or where will your grow facility be?
We will be making arrangements with a variety of different producers.
Okay,
It won't be like Garden Remedies where it's a grow facility and it's vertically integrated. We'll be buying from a variety of different
Okay,
producers.
so your material will be coming from a host of different suppliers, and it'll be approached that way. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Any other questions from the councilors? Questions from the councilors? Questions from the councilors? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed, and this item is in Urban Affairs.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 3.
From City Councilor Roby, proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650, Sections 17 and 18, relative to livestock farms.
Councilor Roby.
Mr. President, thank you. A resident near me had requested that I look into finding something to deal with some chicken issues that are in the city. I sent this on to the legal department. They worked with the building department and created this. I move to refer it to the planning board, to urban affairs, set a public hearing date for February 24th, and to advertise.
Motion made and seconded to refer to Urban Affairs, refer to the Planning Board, set a public hearing for February 24th, and advertise. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is approved unanimously. Item number 4.
Communication from the mayor regarding a transfer request in the amount of $3,029,000 for the design and construction of DEP corrective actions relative to the redevelopment of the Hudson Street landfill.
Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to refer to finance.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer to finance. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Oram.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've been here before when I brought up the landfill because we've seen other proposals. I'm glad to see we're getting to this point finally. It's a $2 million give or take price tag, another $1 million to go forward and look at some use of that facility. Other towns, it might be recreation, it could be solar, but most important is to get that landfill back within the required standards of the state. And most of that entails reshaping it and making sure the drainage around it is appropriate so that when it rains out, it just doesn't pool on top of it. It allows the landfill to breathe, to allow gas to escape. So this is a definite need, actually an administrative order from the DEP. So it has to be done, and it's long overdue in my view. It will talk about Marlboro being a safe environment. It will help all its neighbors around it, as well as give the city an opportunity to do something on this property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other
Mr.
discussion?
President, you used to be my chair. Mr. President.
I've gone by worse. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, President Ossing. I remember this coming up 5 years ago because it was one of the first votes that I had as a city councilor that I really regretted doing because I didn't want to come out and say I'm against sports fields because I actually think the city doesn't have enough sports fields. I just don't like the idea of having sports fields on top of toxic waste dumps. And I know that in the mayor's comments, he's saying it may not be that. We may have to find an alternative use to that. And as Councilor Oram said, there are opportunities to put a solar farm there, which would be a revenue generator for the city. So as this moves forward, I think we need to keep an eye on this. If this does come to a situation where we can't do a sports field, we may want to consider an alternative location for the sports field and may actually pursue that as a separate avenue. If we find another better place, we don't have to put it here. So it's something for us to consider. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Any other comments or any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of referring to the Finance Committee? All those opposed? The vote is unanimous to go to Finance. Item 5.
Communication from the mayor regarding transfer request in the amount of $400,000 from stabilization open space to open space acquisition to fund the proposed acquisition of 45 to 47 and 55 Bolton Street, identified as map 57 parcel 104 and map 70 parcel 296, and to authorize the mayor to enter into a purchase and sale agreement.
Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to refer to finance.
Motion is made and seconded to refer to the Finance Committee. Is there any discussion? Councilor Oram.
I'm going to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Allow Kristen to go ahead.
I missed that one. Councilor Dumas.
I have to recuse myself from this vote.
Understand Councilor Dumas is recused from the vote, recused from participating.
I didn't want him getting in.
That's right. Councilor Oram.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is long overdue. I know we may want to believe there's plenty of parking in the Main Street area, but you go to events in Marlboro, sometimes one of my fellow councilors from the past believes it's always available. Parking will always be available in the garages. That's why I couldn't make it to a holiday get-together just last month, because the parking lot was full. I think this is a great use. The Union Common area, that would be excellent for people to walk down to on the same side as that street. So you have my support on this for the additional parking. In fact, it'd be nice to make it parking and a building above it, but we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, President Ossing. I agree. This is definitely something that's really needed in the area of downtown. Considering this is supposed to be tied to the Education Department, I would prefer to also see a crosswalk formally put in place with lights that goes from the two, because I think that's really going to be needed. Mr. Coloni? So, thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Councilor Landers.
Mr. President, I likewise will support this when it does come out of finance. I might have a few comments to make. In fact, before I knew this was going to be on the agenda, I did set up a meeting with the superintendent of schools and the assistant super for tomorrow, a luncheon meeting, but I know this is going to be the topic. You know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what they have in mind. But as of right now, I think it's a good move. And I will have more to say when it is in finance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. Any other discussion? Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to comment as well that during the finance meeting, safety issues will definitely be coming up on that lot. So thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion on the motion to refer to the Finance Committee? All those in favor? All those opposed? Is approved 10-0 with one abstention. Number 6.
Communication from the mayor regarding a gift acceptance in the amount of $14,358.35 for the police department from the Marlboro Police K-9 Unit fundraiser to be used for the department's K-9 program.
Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to approve, and thank you to the Marlboro Police Department, all the volunteers, and the residents that did support the K-9 fundraiser.
Motion made and seconded to approve the gift of $14,358.35 and to thank all the folks that participated. That was a great turnout over the summer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is unanimous. Number 7.
Communication from the mayor regarding the reappointment of Diane Smith as city auditor for a 3-year term from date of confirmation.
Councilor Dumas.
Motion to move to personnel.
Motion made and seconded to refer to the Personnel Committee. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is unanimous. Number 8.
Communication from the mayor regarding the appointment of Nusrat Khan to the planning board for a 1-year term to expire the first Monday in February 2021.
Councilor Dumas.
Motion to move to personnel.
Motion made and seconded to refer to the Personnel Committee. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is unanimous. Number 9.
Communication from City Solicitor Jason Grossfield regarding the decision of the Land Court in favor of the city relative to the William Street Holdings LLC versus members of the Marlboro City Council, docket number 18, MISC 000284-HPS.
Councilor Tenera.
Thank you, Mr. President. Accept and place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept and place on file. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Roby.
Thank you. I just think that the city council owes a debt of gratitude to the legal department for starting with Solicitor Ryder and continuing with the current personnel to make this a successful appeal or presentation in court, and I congratulate them on our win. Thank you.
I would echo those sentiments, Councilor Roby. It's nice to be on the winning side of a legal battle for a change. So any discussion on accepting and place on file? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It is unanimous. Number 10.
Communication from the Town of Littleton Board of Selectmen and Planning Board regarding a counterpoint to the Town of Needham's letter relative to House Bill number 3507.
Councilor Tenera.
Thank you, Mr. President. Accept and place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept and place on file. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It is accepted and placed on file. Unanimous. Number 11.
Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees.
And I will just take a little quick editorial here. We took the comments from the Rules Committee, found out we can actually condense them and make it in one vote, so well done. So entertain a motion. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, President Ossing. Accept and place on file the minutes of the board, commission, and committees. Do I need to itemize each one, or is that close enough? There you go.
Done.
Motion made and seconded to accept and place on file the motions of the minutes of the boards and commissions. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is filed unanimously. Claims. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you, President Ossing.
Anything.
Prefer to legal.
Motion made and seconded to refer to the legal department. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is approved. All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Unanimous to go to legal department. Excellent.
Reports of committee.
Reports of committee. Councilor Dumas.
Personnel will meet on Monday, February 3rd at 6:30. We'll take up the 3 items from the last meeting as well as the 2 items that were today. So
Thank you,
6:30
Councilor
on
Dumas.
February 9th, February 3rd. Thank you.
Personnel, February 3rd at 6:30. Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also on February 3rd at 7:15, Finance will be meeting to take up the library updated for the Marlboro updated committee for the building committee of the library, and that will be on February 3rd as well. Possible adding 2 items to from tonight's agenda to that meeting as well.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Irish.
President.
Councilor Landers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Service Committee will meet on February 3rd at 7 p.m. to take up 3 items concerning National Grid. Thank you, Mr. President.
We have no unfinished business. Councilor Tenera.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:03. Well done.